Hey there, folks. Chris McLean back with another episode. And in the studio today, I have Anthony from CommTogether. And they help unlock the potential of brands telling their unique story using foundational emotional messages to grow audiences. By lovingly engaging communities for over 30 years, they've developed a framework to measure and guide brand and marketing authenticity success. And they offer consulting, branding, and website programs, plus ongoing activities including brochures, newsletters, and podcasts. Very, very much full service. Excited to have this chat with Anthony. Welcome. Thanks for joining me, mate.
Thanks so much for having me, Chris. Really appreciate being here.
No, pleasure. So it sounds like you do kind of a bit of everything. Do you consider yourself sort of full service integrated, or do you consider yourself a specialist in a particular niche? How would you describe sort of what you do?
Yeah, I think it's probably a bit of the first two, really. A full service agency, but very integrated. The reality of the way marketing has developed over the years has simply been that you needed to have that high level understanding of how things work, and that's very much what I do. And I do make lots of things happen along the way. But a lot of them are through strategic partnerships that we've formed over a long period of time. So we can offer that full service, but there are certain elements that absolutely I'm doing through strategic partnerships. It's, and what I've found more often than not is that most clients just want to know that there's one person looking after it. They don't really mind if you're doing this and that in a few different places. So that's the nature of it is we do have some specialties that we deal with internally, but then there are some other things that go beyond the scope.
Okay. Yeah. It's good to have that central point of contact. I'm sorry, and just hear myself echoing through your speakers over there. It's always
turn the volume down a little bit if we can. But look, I think the thing is, Chris, that what I've really worked out in recent times is there's absolutely a need for someone that is advising and managing all of the various specialties that exist within marketing, and whether that's managing it because I'm doing the services or managing other people to do the services through my agency, or whether I am advising, consulting, if you like, a business who then has their own resources that they're making use of, wherever those resources might come from. Sometimes they're other agencies and sometimes they're just internal resources, but having that overall strategic view is something that's become increasingly important. And that's something that I'm doing more and more of these days. It's kind of the foundational elements that we work on together, and then that strategic overseeing that works really well together. And that's where we found a little bit of a niche in recent times in particular.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's I guess almost a more traditional type model, right? Your big agencies, your big firms have that full service strategic approach where they're sort of handling and managing everything, and then outsourcing, insourcing to get the work done if they need to bring specialists in. If it's interesting to hear that's now somewhat of a competitive advantage. Do you think that's because we sort of have talked a lot on the show previously that there's kind of a pretty low barrier to entry for digital marketing and Facebook ads, and there's a massive boom in agencies and digital marketers? Is that the reason that you've kind of got a lot of tacticians out there just doing a little bit, doing the specialist thing, and there's less and less of that kind of more traditional full service strategic sort of 40,000 foot view from agency? Is that why you're so competitive?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, one of the things that's happened, I think, so much in marketing is that marketing used to be considered this little thing, and it's grown to so much more. And as a consequence, people's understanding of what marketing is has decreased, and they tend to focus on little areas. And what happens is those little areas drive businesses in a particular direction without realizing that there's a whole lot of other things that they should be considering and focusing on. And it's you're competing in a world where people can do things from their pocket. The phone is so powerful because when they consider anything digital, you can do that through your phone. And just because you can doesn't mean you're any good at it. And I think having that high level strategic view is really important, but equally getting those foundational elements in place is important. So, performing all that full service stuff, which, as I said, we do for some, is not necessarily always the starting point. It used to be that people would find a marketing agency said, we want you to do everything. And that still does happen from time to time, but it often starts at a different level where they're saying, oh, look, we're doing a little bit of this, and this. We need someone to guide us a little bit better. And then it often may lead to more down the track and doing that. And I've got some long-term relationships that have been based exactly on that kind of process happening. So I think it's a really interesting time. I liken, marketing is like, I sort of often say to newer clients, marketing is like going to your GP now. When you go to your GP, you don't expect him to operate and pull your tonsils out. And equally, the person that pulls your tonsils out, you don't expect them to repair your knee. And marketing's become more and more specialized in the same way. So where the GP does coordinate all of those services, he doesn't perform all of them. And I think that's where I've found that we're starting to fit in a lot more, is doing a lot of that high level stuff. And then coming in and, as I said, coordinating all of these other services. And yes, we can bring in those specialists and do it under one umbrella if that's what the client wants done.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. That I even talk about that sort of that doctor approach, that sort of diagnostic approach, right? Where you'd be very surprised if you walked into the doctor and said, "Look, doc, I've got a bit of a sniffle," and he said, "Okay, I'll send you off for knee surgery." Like, hang on, that's not what I need. I've just got a sniffle. But that's kind of what happens sometimes, right? A client can come and say, look, I need more leads, or I need to grow my business. And someone that only knows Facebook ads go, well, you've got to do Facebook ads. Facebook's where it's at. You've got to do Facebook, and they'll sell them on that service, which kind of, as you were sort of saying earlier, takes them down that rabbit hole of that gets some sort of a result, but then they're missing. That might not be the right thing for that business because they haven't actually diagnosed the audience or the market or the business properly, and they've just gone, well, this is what I do, so that's what I'm going to recommend. I think that
absolutely
happened a lot.
And look, it was probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago that I remember a particular client that came in and we were sitting down having a discussion, and I said, what is it that you're doing at the moment? And he had a web developer, he had someone doing social media, and he had someone advising him on doing a whole bunch of videos, and they were all pulling him in 3 different directions. And it's like, I don't know which is the right direction to go. The one, and the funny thing was that the person he was probably paying the most for was giving him the worst possible advice, because they were, as you say, they were very specialized in a particular area. So they weren't looking beyond. They were just trying to sell on this one thing, and it was absolutely wrong for him. There was, and I was able to say that to him because it didn't make any difference which direction he went, for as far as I was concerned, because my role was just a consulting bit. So the other bits and pieces weren't going to, influence the sort of a budget or spend with me. And which is great to have that independence as well. And it was very interesting that, I think it saved him a lot of money in the end, because really you can go down, as you say, these rabbit holes very, very easily, and they can look really attractive, but suddenly you get there and, there's a whole big world that you've missed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very different marketplace, isn't it? I mean, so social media it's so fragmented, right? That you get these sort of hyper niched, hyper focused specialists that say, we do this, and this, and it can be easy to miss the big picture. But when you're coming into a business and you're sort of seeing that fragmentation, how are you managing that conversation? Sort of saying, right, you might be losing money by doing this, and this. Let's take a step back. And a lot of the times it just comes back to basic foundational marketing principles, right? Which a lot of newcomers coming in, they don't necessarily have that just foundational basic marketing principles. They know how to do Facebook ads, or they know how to do Instagram, and that's what they know, the technique and the tactics, but they're kind of missing the fundamentals. Is that kind of what you see in the market as well when you get into a client like the example you gave then, where they've been sold on a platform or a tactic or a technique, but there's no kind of depth to it?
Yeah, I think too often people have nosedived into things and not really looked at those foundational elements and re-looked at them. Particularly, this past sort of 18 months, a lot of changes in the world. And if you think that things haven't changed for your business, then you've got it wrong. And so you need to review that stuff. And I think most, particularly newer businesses, come in and they just go straight, well, we've got to start delivering our product or service, whatever it is. They take some shortcuts invariably on brand, and they don't really have any of their messages and stuff sorted out. And because there's some opportunities they've been selling and they've built for a period of time, and then when they really want to take things up a notch, they suddenly realize that the foundational elements were never in place. The stories were not there, their vision's not there. It surprises me how often you have a conversation with a business and you ask them about their vision, and they have absolutely no idea what the vision is, let alone a mission. And all of those other things that form those important stories. I had a conversation recently with a relatively small business owner, and I've known him for a number of years. And we've done little bits and pieces and stuff together. And we were having a talk about why he does what he does. And he actually never thought about it. And I felt like I was in therapy with him because because I knew him personally as well. I was able to sort of cut through a fair bit, and we got down to something that happened when he was 16. And realized that completely has formed his career for the next 40 years. And he didn't realize it until then. Yeah. And having spoken to him since then, he says just been a game changer in the way he thinks about what he's doing and why he's doing it. He's much happier with what he's doing and what he's even achieved as a result of that, which then reflects with the clients, and then reflects with the stories that you can tell. And a lot of people gloss over all of this stuff, and to me it's incredibly important because it forms the foundation for all of your messages. I mean, the one commonality across any kind of marketing is that it's an emotional connect, and if you don't have that emotional connect, nothing that you do will be as successful as it could be.
Yeah, 100%. I'll totally back that from my perspective as from coaching agencies. That's kind of where I go to first is, who are you as the human being? I know you talk about you've literally written the book on sort of always sort of having this sort of human component to your marketing and building that authenticity sort of into your business. Into marketing campaigns, having that authenticity, and that authenticity comes from that, as you're saying, that human perspective, right? It's about me as a person. And I think we can, as business owners, we can get too much into the business stuff and we kind of forget ourselves in the process. And you end up, as you're saying, like with your mate there, where you sort of get down the line of your business and you go, well, actually, what are my values? What do I believe in? What do I actually want? And if that alignment's out, then you can do all the tactics and techniques and campaigns that you want until that alignment starts to happen from that human place, that genuine authenticity of who I am and how I want to show up in my business. When that's disconnected, the business tends to really save it. Is that something you bring to a lot of clients? So obviously, that's a perspective that you have. Is that sort of what you bring in as well when you're talking to clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a big believer in authenticity, and it's something I've got all over my various materials and things, because that element and that sincerity and that real humanity is something that binds us, and you know, and I think that if you can introduce that in some small way into your business, it makes a huge difference. Now, of course, if you're selling a $2 product, there's a limit on what you need to do at that level. But even then, customer service is a big factor. I mean, how many times have we bought items on an eBay, for example, literally for a couple of dollars, and not gone back to the store because you just felt that there wasn't really a level of service that meant that there was a reason to go back. And that's not a difficult thing to do. That can almost be automated if you get it right. But it does have to feel human and authentic as much as possible. And that's why even, I don't spend a lot of time on automation for that reason, because it's never the same as actually having proper human contact. And I think that, it's interesting when you deal with really large businesses who, by virtue of their size, have to use a lot of automated style services to get the economies. And, we all feel frustrated when we deal with them. I mean, there's nothing worse than, picking up a phone, if you can even find a phone number these days for someone, and you go through 500 buttons before you actually might get to a person, and that person's not someone who can even answer your questions anyway. And so you just get more and more frustrated. Whereas when you deal with someone who's perhaps slightly smaller and you get to speak to a human straight away, you're prepared to pay a little bit more for that service sometimes as well. And I think that's also the interesting thing is that value of service. We lost that such a long time ago in Australia. I mean, I remember growing up, petrol stations where they would actually serve you. Like you didn't go and put the petrol in yourself. Someone came and pumped the petrol, right? Yeah. And we lost that. And it's around the same time that we lost all sense of customer service. And I think that's something that's slowly starting to come back. And I think that's where, a lot of small to medium businesses are making their mark and making a dent, because they can justify doing that. And as I said, there's some level of automation you can do that still has a human feel to it. But it's finding that balance that's incredibly difficult. So authenticity for me is a huge factor, and I've spent a lot of time working in the not-for-profit sector as well as with businesses, and it's the one thing that distinguishes them. That human element is everything in their marketing. There are non-for-profits who in various measurements are by far the most impressive brands and the most well-regarded brands in Australia, and they do it with very little actual marketing budget, because it's the human contact which is everything for them. It's the storytelling and their ability to tell those real stories in a way without it being overproduced, which is that's where the difference is. And look, and that's also where I've started to find a bit of a niche with doing a few things lately that, is trying to bring that out of small and medium businesses as well in a very easy fashion, so they can deliver that rather than just packaging it all up and overproducing it, as I said, and selling all the time. I think that's the other big thing. I think, to me, the line between sales and marketing has got a lot clearer in recent times, and I think that I don't think all businesses have caught up with that idea, but I think most definitely that divide is there.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Like what you're saying about that, there's this kind of distinction happening between marketing and sales, but even it was talking about foundations and principles. I think, as you say, a lot of that stuff's just kind of been either the risk of the people doing it just sort of haven't had that basic fundamental understanding of just foundational marketing principles. They haven't come to these businesses, to agencies from marketing. They've come to it from Facebook ads or from tech or from digital. They've come to it from a different perspective, and without that, so yeah, I'd love hearing that the sort of marketing and humanness and just connecting as people is becoming a competitive advantage now. And so particularly last 18 months where everyone's gone just super tech and everything's digital now, and there is, as you're saying, a lot of automation and that sort of thing happening, it's very easy to forget human connection. Marketing foundations make something that somebody wants to buy and help them buy it. This foundational stuff.
Yeah. So I was just going to say that I think to me, it's just like even prior to COVID, one of the things that I'd been predicting probably for about the last 5 years is a return to community. And what we've forgotten, and I've seen it, I've got, I've got kids who are late teens and 20s, and what I've seen in the way they've grown up is so different to the way we grew up, and that the false idea of what actually constitutes community has really, I think, escalated during the COVID period, because suddenly we've been starved of, human contact in the same way that we had it before. And I think there's been a realization of the value of that human element and that return to community in this, but true community. I think we could probably spend an hour talking about that, but I think mostly community to me is about more than just because we follow the same football team doesn't make us a member of a community. There has to be more to it. And I think those communities that really survive and thrive have a lot to do with a lot more of shared values, shared sense of purpose. It's why what I'm going to be watching with interest over the next few years is whether there is a slow return to religion, because I think that underpins an idea of community. It's just one idea, but I think that human element is a huge factor. And I think as much as we can talk to people and have clients from around the world, and which is fantastic, but unless you have, you need to have more to it. Even those relationships need to go deeper, and in order for them to survive, otherwise you're just ticking another box. And I think that those businesses like, a marketing agency, which typically is dealing with people, you very much need to establish those relationships. I think if you perform all of those services in a very automated fashion, and you keep pushing out to constant changing of staff, and you never deal with the main people all that often, then those relationships deteriorate fairly quickly. So again, to me, it's all about that human contact. And I think relationships has been everything in the way I've founded this business. The design agency I've worked with has been for over 20 years now. We do everything together. That's huge, and I don't think there are too many that have those kinds of solid relationships in place. And we both know our specialties. We work brilliantly together. We've done countless things together. It just makes a massive difference to the way we work, but it also makes a massive difference to clients. And again, it goes back to that human element, those foundational parts of marketing and the basics of relationship building.
It's certainly an interesting time. You're saying there's definitely been that sort of rise in tribalism, right? And this is sort of going back over the last couple of decades, very, very small, minute, because of the internet, right? You can find 1,000 people that like the same kind of thing that we do. Like I was saying, the difference between kind of tribalism and genuine belonging to community, I think that there's an important sort of distinction there. So I mean, how that sort of evolves over the next decade or so, I think, as you said, we're really, really interesting. I think there's also a connection to kind of, I guess, the sort of the sustainability movement, right, in there, recycling and reuse and sort of circular economy, this sort of discussion where people are much more aware of sort of universal principles and looking after the planet and collaboration now, sort of in these sustainable systems. There's more talk about regeneration and community and supporting, moving away from linear thinking and linear processing to community and supporting the next person down the value chain, the supply chain, and looking at genuinely supporting the next person down the line. So I think some of that thinking will sort of find its way into organizations at different levels as well. So it's a pretty interesting time.
It is, and I think the other factor that comes into all of that is trust. That trust has been something that has come so easily, to people. It's just, oh well, it's on Facebook. It must be real. Like, really? It's one of those things that only true human relationships and shared values, breeds proper trust. And but that trust is easily broken as well. And I think that whilst it was 10 years ago that no one would put a credit card down on the internet. We were all scared that it was going to we were going to get robbed of thousands of dollars. Now we have it all built into our phones, and we just walk past and swipe and away we go. That trust factor is huge. And I think that, as trust gets broken, and it will get broken, that the human element is where the difference is, and how you react. That's one of the biggest things, is how you react when things go wrong. And I see that too often with businesses that, things go wrong because we're human, right? And it's how you react when that situation occurs, which makes all of the difference. And, you don't always get it right. But at least if you've built a trust, then you've got an opportunity to come back. But too often people don't value that. And it goes back to human relationships. It goes back to authenticity that, factors into the equation. Absolutely factors in all the time.
Yeah. Super, super important point. That genuine trust comes out of someone like yourself, who's there to genuinely diagnose the problem, right? Sort of going back to right back at the front, talking about that sort of doctor analogy, like what is actually going to be right for you? Where are you at? Where are you trying to get to? How can I help you get from here to there? Rather than just going, hey, look, buy this pen because you want to communicate. Well, I sell pens, so the best communication way is pen, so buy this pen. Rather than thinking about what's actually going to help this person move forward. I think that setup sets up the relationship in a different way, so that when issues happen, there is that trust of, Anthony helped me out. He's genuinely got my back. He's been looking after me. He's supporting me. So look, I'll trust him. I'll give him another chance, right? That trust is baked into that type of a setup of a relationship. Whereas Anthony promised me 30 leads a week for the next 90 days and he hasn't delivered, right? Cut off to the next one. There's a different level of trust when you're not building it from that sort of foundational principle.
Absolutely. And I think the same applies internally, by the way, to internal marketing, to your staff. I mean, we've seen that massively now. So with the majority of people working from home now, that's been an interest. I mean, I've worked from home for 10 years. So it's not been anything new to me, but I do understand the whole idea that bosses say, well, if they're working at home, they're not going to actually do any work, or they're going to be, pretending they're doing work and not doing as much as they should. And I think that's a trust factor as well that's actually had to turn around and has been a bit of a game changer. But it is a difficult one for people. You don't know. It's what people are doing. And even when they're in Zoom meetings, and I think we've probably all been guilty of it, where we're sitting in a Zoom meeting and people think you're looking at the camera and what you're actually doing is sitting there and you're typing an email, so how much attention are people paying to those things? Whereas you couldn't get away with that in a face-to-face scenario. So trust is a huge thing about getting work done, about how you respond to things. I had a situation just yesterday where I've got a relationship with a particular business for over 6 years now. We keep building and building things that we're doing together. A post went out yesterday for them that had a photograph that was a wrong photograph. It was an innocent enough mistake because the photograph is still actually on their website. But, well, it's fine. The CEO contacted me, said, look, we've pulled the post till you can get another photograph. And that's because he completely trusts me and there was no issue. Whereas if we didn't have that kind of relationship that we have, he could have easily said, how dare you do that? I'm not going to pay you this month, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And it's a simple mistake. And, I responded straight away and said, no problems. We're going to find a different graphic. We'll get something else up there. We should probably do something about the website as well for you. And that's, you move on from those things. And I think that's the difference, right? Is that, we all have things where we get frustrated with businesses that we're dealing with on some kind of personal level. And it's because we don't have that relationship that makes all the difference. And people don't value longevity either. I mean, I've been with my phone company for since they began pretty much. And, that didn't stop them the other day when they made a mistake on my account. They pulled the NBN just within 30 seconds. They sent me a text message saying there's a problem with your account. We're pulling it. Gone. And so in mid-conversation, in the middle of a Zoom meeting with a client, I lost everything. I lost all of it. It took me 3 hours to get back online. No formal apology. I said, do you want me to send you a bill for the dollars that I've lost as a result of what you've done? And there's a don't care factor, so whereas, I like to think that clients that I've been with a long time are with me because of that relationship, and that we continue to build that and value it, and show a bit of interest and sincerity in connecting with people, even if you haven't connected with them for a while. I mean, again, just using a personal example, I had a reason to contact a former client contact him in his work capacity on behalf of someone else. And, I recalled his family situation and various things that he has family overseas and couldn't travel. And we connected on had a small conversation about that before we got into what we were really there to talk about. And that just makes all the difference, doesn't it? It's basic
small
humanity.
Talk, right?
Basic humanity, but it's forgotten, right?
Yeah.
And because we have those shared values and shared sense of purpose, I know that in the future, if he needs some help in marketing, I'll be the first person he'll call. And that's the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that kind of, again, as we were saying earlier, it's that distinction between selling and marketing or branding, right? Or positioning. They're quite
brand awareness versus selling.
Yeah.
I'm in the business of brand awareness, not selling.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people they go for the sale because, again, maybe they don't have that alignment of, well, I've got to make a sale because I'm servicing everybody and I just need to get as many clients as I can, and I'm not very clear on what I'm doing, so I'll sell to anybody to get anybody in. There's a lot of reasons that can happen, but focusing too much on the sale decimates that genuine, authentic, hey, look, I'm here to help. If I can help you, great. Here's what I do. Let's move forward. Otherwise, hey, how are the kids? Great weather we're having down here. Let's set this up for if I can help you or you can help me down the line. Yeah. A lot of that stuff gets missed, sort of, whether that's a generational issue or.
Well, it's people are so interested in building something that they can sell to some mega conglomerate. That's what they think they can do, and it that doesn't happen all that often for starters. And secondly, if you actually look at some of those big organizations, I mean, Apple a case in point, and I'm sure you've spoken about Apple in the past here, is that they still build those very human relationships. That's what's made them so successful, is they know their niche. They know the kinds of people that want to use what they produce, and the customer service that you generally get from them is fantastic. I'd even say the same about Google. I mean, it surprises me at times when I've had things that I've had to deal with them, that you can actually speak to someone in Google who knows what they're talking about, is prepared to respond to you.
Yeah, true.
It's not, compare that to a bank. Try and talk to someone there, or to a phone company. I mean, the phone companies are definitely terrible at it, because their idea of they kind of think, well, if we lose 5 today, we'll gain 10 tomorrow. So who cares about the 5?
Because the difference between monopolies and sort of small business, right?
Yeah, I think that if you're, it's the simple thing for me is that if you're buying your coffee from a local store, and you walk in and they say, "Oh, g'day, Chris, how you going? You want your usual?" You feel good, right? You know, and it's not much of an effort for that. And you got to do that. They're doing that for an item they're selling to you for $4.50 every day, right? And so when you're selling something that's worth tens of thousands of dollars, why can't you do the same thing? It's pretty simple to me. And you know, and they have a bit of a conversation with you, and they know, Chris, oh, how's work at the moment? Is it, you know, and how's the kids and all of those kinds of things, right? It's not difficult, but yet we forget about it. And I think, and we feel special when we do, right? Sometimes we keep going back for the coffee, even though we know that the one down the road actually might be a little bit better. But this guy's, you know, he looks after us, and
it's a relationship.
I'm prepared to buy it from him because of that. And that's, you know, it is really that simple. And like I said, you do it for a $4.50 item. I don't understand why people don't do it on a bigger level. And it is that, but as I said, it gets back down to foundational elements of marketing. It is those, you know, the vision, mission, values, the why, the purpose, all of that kind of stuff, mixed in with how you, you know, build relationships in everything that you do along the way. It's that simple, but it gets overly complicated where people, you know, as you say, add these things like, oh, I'm really excited about Facebook advertising or Google AdWords or whatever takes their fancy at the moment. And that's been really fantastic for us. And right, yeah, but there's more to it than that, you know, and that is relatively hit and miss, you know, and particularly if you don't have the basics in place.
Because that environment shifts very, very rapidly. So it's always important to have good bricks and mortar foundations. Get the foundations built before you build the high rise, right? Or the whole thing's going to topple over. So makes a lot of sense. But common sense isn't that common a lot of the time.
No, it certainly isn't. But look, the one thing I do recognise, Chris, is that you know, these things come easy to us because we're involved in marketing and day to day, and it makes sense to us all. But often business leaders who think they understand marketing actually really don't. And a lot of these things that come so easily to us that are sitting in these kinds of positions don't to other people. And I flip that around and say, look, I'm not a numbers person. You know, when it comes to looking over the financial statements and all those bits and pieces, I mean, you know, I could be looking at anything, quite frankly, a lot of the time. It's a glaze over. And I talk to an accountant or a bookkeeper, and they say, how can you not, you know, sort of see this and this? And well, you know, that's just not the way I'm wired. And I think that's part of it as well. That's, you know, going back to our original conversation, that's why the niche is forming is because I think it's that recognition that business leaders have, is that they've got a weak spot, you know, and the best business leaders surround themselves with the best people to fulfill various functions. And, you know, if I can come in and offer them that as far as the consulting and bringing out that authenticity, they're probably the two things that I focus on the most, you know, then that's great. You know, that's what I'm after. You know, in building that with them. If they go on and want me to build them a website and do a brochure and a whole bunch of other things for them, fantastic. But it doesn't need to be about that. Whereas I think a lot of agencies are coming in, and which is fine. That's the way a lot of them have operated for a long time. Is they come in and they say, and they just keep upselling them on everything. I start from a level and say, we can just stay here. You know, if you want this other stuff, no problems. I can offer it to you, but you know, when you're ready and you want it and you want me to do it, let's talk. But let's just come in and let's just work on this stuff on a continuing basis, you know. And I think that's the other difference too, is that you know, I've started to build subscription models for the consulting that I do, so that we have an ongoing relationship and continue to build that. And that to me is worth far more than coming in as a one-off and selling them a $40,000 worth of whatever it is. You know, having them for the long term is invaluable to me.
That lifetime value and genuine relationship. I'm sure we could keep chatting. Next, I suppose we should probably wrap at some point, but Yeah, thank you so much. It's been very, very insightful. There's a lot of really good, deep information that you've brought up in the show for people to come back and get back to the foundations and relationships and all that good stuff. If people want to find out more about you and connect with you, Anthony, there's a couple of things up on screen, but for those that are listening at home, where are the best places for people to come and find you and get connected?
Look, CommTogether.com.au, that's the website, but probably the best one otherwise is LinkedIn. Connect up with me on LinkedIn, mention the show, mention Chris and in an email, and I'll definitely happy to connect with you. And look, and for me, one of the things on LinkedIn that I like to do is have a conversation. I hate people connecting just for the sake of connecting. If that's what you want, that's fine, but it doesn't really do much. I'd rather connect and have a conversation with you. And if there's something that we can work on together, great. If there's not, at least we know who each other are. That's another basic human element for me. So if you look me up, it's AD Perl is the one on there, but there aren't too many Anthony Perls on PERL is probably the trick. No A in there. You'll find me pretty easily and look up CommTogether. We've got a pretty good presence on LinkedIn in particular.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for dropping by. Really, really insightful stuff. Really good stuff for people wherever they are in their agency journey or their client journey, getting back to that foundational stuff. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What do I actually want this to be? Getting that clarity, having that mission, vision, alignment, really, really important, critical stuff. And then building proper, long-term, genuine human relations. As you found out, simple sounding stuff that unfortunately is not that well applied or not that common. So yeah, really good stuff for people to come and have a listen to and sort of get some pointers on maybe where they can tighten the ship or start to build that sustainability into what they're doing.
Absolutely. And like I said, always welcome to have a conversation. And I don't see other marketing agencies as competitors. I see as potential partners, and, always happy to have a conversation with people. And, there's so much that we can do and so much that we can work on, together. And if we can bring back that basic humanity in everything that we do, not only are we better off as agencies, but the world is a better place as a result of human connections. And that's something that's, important to me. I say, we want to change the world one person at a time. And that's, it's as simple as that to me.
Love it. What a place to wind up and finish off. Thank you so much, Anthony. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Let's go make the world a better place. Love it. Well, see you guys on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.